So, have you ever wondered how you could shape your path in instructional design or what route you could take to go from wherever you are to become an instructional designer? Well, if that has crossed your mind, then you are in the right place because today we are going to be exploring 5 incredible ways that you can get yourself reskilled as an instructional designer. So, stick with us and we're going to walk you through each of those 5 ways. All right. So before we get started, I do want to tell you just a little bit about my path or my journey to instructional design. So, as many of you know, I was a fifth and sixth grade social studies and science teacher before I became an instructional designer. Now, I actually took one of these paths as my path into instructional design. So, I'm excited to tell you about that. So I made the transition to instructional design without even knowing what instructional design was, without having a certificate, without doing any self study, without getting another degree. Now, I eventually did all of those things, but I got my skill development in instructional design with on the job training. So I'm excited to be talking to you about that today as one of the 5 paths that you can take to get started in instructional design. And that, my friends, is what we are here to talk about today. So we're going to be talking about how you can chart your ID learning journey and which path you can take. And you might take a combination of a couple, or you might pick one and that just be your lane until you get that instructional design job. So, again, there are many different paths that you can take to get reskilled in instructional design from wherever you are starting today. Now, I would love to hear who is with me and where it is that you are starting. So, if you just want to pop into the comments and say, hello, I am a teacher, or hello, I'm a real estate agent, I would just love to know what your starting point was. Also, please keep in mind as we go through these 5 different ways that you can get reskilled in instructional design, there is no right way, there is no wrong way. There is only the way that works best for you and what's going on in your life and what your budget is. So don't feel like I am leaning any particular way because even if I were leaning, my way would only be a good fit for me and your way would be a good fit for you. All right. So, first up, our first stop with our 5 different ways that you can get reskilled as an instructional designer is that we are going to talk about a traditional degree plan as option 1 or path 1. So, with our traditional degree plan, most of you are already pretty familiar with this because most of you already have an undergraduate degree. So, whenever we're talking about a traditional degree program, we're talking about physically going to a university to get educated in instructional design. That could be in the form of getting a bachelor's degree or in the form of getting a master's degree. Now, these typically require a lot of time on your part. Programs can take anywhere from 1 to 2 years, and they often come with a pretty steep price tag. They could range anywhere from 12,000 to 30,000 plus, depending on the university that you are going to. In addition to the time commitment and the money or the finances side of things, these often require a lot of effort because you have assignments, right? And these assignments are often high stakes where you're looking to earn a particular grade. Also, you don't have a lot of variety or choice within those assignments that you're working on. So, on job descriptions, you will often see that a degree program is preferred, but not required. So don't feel like that you have to go back and get a master's degree if you're considering instructional design because you don't. There are other ways that you can get skilled up in instructional design, and we're going to be talking about those today. So again, it's a great option. The only right option or wrong option is whatever you decide it to be, okay? So no leaning on our side, but again, this is 1 to 2 years, and we're going to do a recap at the end where we weigh the pros and cons of each one, but we're going to introduce you to each one first, okay? All right, so next up, we've got our online degree program. So the traditional is where you go physically into the classroom. That required set days a week. You had to show up at a certain time. where our online degree program is a little bit more flexible, right? Because online typically doesn't have a synchronous component where you have to show up on a certain day or at a certain time. Some programs or some classes will require that once a week you have to get on for an hour, but most give you quite a bit of flexibility so that you can go in on Monday or Sunday whenever the week opens up. You can look at what the assignments are, what the readings are, do all of those things by the due date, Saturday at 11:59 p.m. or Sunday at 11:59 p.m., depending on how that week is structured. So you really have a lot more flexibility in these. The assignments might be the same, the component where it's still high stakes, you have quizzes, you have graded assignments, you're getting feedback from a professor. All of that is the same as it is with a traditional online program, but you've got more flexibility in this. Also, you get to save a little bit money in the form of you don't have to pay for gas and things like that. Same commitment, again, as a traditional degree program, has the same kind of time commitment, same kind of money commitment, same amount of effort. So traditional is one path, online degree program is a second path. Now, third path that we're going to talk about are certificate programs. So your certificate programs are a really happy middle ground for many people, because with a certificate program, you can usually get through your reskilling process a lot faster. And these are often more affordable than going back and getting your degree, whether it's a second degree or a master's degree. What I like about certificate programs is that they focus on specific ID skills, and you still have that same commitment or in effort that's required, because you're still going to be learning and reskilling. It's not necessarily easier. In some cases, it's I don't want to really call it harder, but sometimes it can feel harder because you're going at a faster pace. You get through a master's program in 1 to 2 years, but in one of these certificate programs, you might finish it in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, right? So you're going at a faster pace, but you really are focusing on targeted instructional design skills, knowledge areas, and things like that. You typically get to do hands-on projects that mimic real-world application that can help you get potential jobs and impress potential employers. Now, with certificate programs, you've always got to do your due diligence, because there are a lot of people out there who have certificate programs. So you want to make sure that the program is affordable. I know that in full disclosure, I have a certificate program. So I'm talking about myself included, right? Whenever you're looking at this, but you want to make sure that your program is affordable. Sometimes when people put out certificate programs, there's a finance component, they're trying to make money, but also trying to educate. So you just want to make sure that there is a good balance in that, and that you're not overpaying for something, because at some point that price gets so elevated that you've really got to seriously consider, like, well, maybe at this point I should just go back and get a master's degree or a second degree. So make sure it's affordable in comparison to what it gives you and what your financial circumstances are. You also want to make sure that that certificate program covers major instructional design areas, right? That it's covering all the basics. You don't want to get into a program and find that, gives you a high level overview, but you're not really yet skilled up to do anything. So the ways that you can do your due diligence are check the testimonials, talk to other people who have been through the program so that you can get a sense of what that program is like. And then anytime you see a certificate program give you big claims like 100% of students get jobs, 100% of students XYZ, you should probably fact check that, because in most areas of life, there's usually not a 100% of anything. So anytime I see somebody say 100% or all students, that's kind of a red flag to me. One of the reasons for that is not everybody goes into a program with the same goal. So it doesn't seem reasonable that everyone would have the same outcome. Anyway, just things for you to check. And as I mentioned before, I do have a certificate program. It just happens to be that enrollment is open now between now and September 24th, but we're not going to spend much time on it. Okay, so path number 4 is on the job development. Again, this is the way that I got reskilled in instructional design. So this is how I went from classroom teacher to instructional designer. I went online, I searched my area, I looked at every open job. It didn't matter if it was in computer information systems, if it was in marketing, if it was in project management, didn't matter to me. I literally looked at every single job that was available in my market that had a salary that I was happy with. And I stumbled across instructional design. Up until this point, I had no idea what it was. So I got hired into the job with zero experience, zero background other than my teaching background. Now, what I love about on the job development is that you are literally working in real world context. Your boss is coming to you with real projects and saying, hey, Shawntay, or hey, Katie, we need this training on hazardous communications. This was real. This is what happened to me. I was like, I don't even know what hazardous communications are. I thought it had something to do with communicating, and I was like, what's hazardous about that? Obviously, that's not what it was, but it was a real world context, and I didn't know what it was, which was scary. And then my boss gave me a deadline, which was even more scary because it wasn't that far away and I still had to learn. So it's really nice that you get to do real work. So you're real time solving problems, figuring things out. And if you remember, like if you think back to our our instructional design essentials training, I believe that it was that we did, and that's out on our YouTube channel, when we talked about adult learning theory, that adults like problem solve, right? So it's one of the things that I like about what we do is that I'm often thrown into the mix of needing to solve problems and figure things out. So that's what on the job was for me. So it really provided exposure to me about everything related to instructional design and L&D, because not only was I the instructional designer, I was also the facilitator and I was the LMS administrator, because I was a very wonderful team of one. So I did all of the things. But to this day, it was one of my favorite jobs because it really gave me just such an incredible view of all the different areas of L&D that has really helped shaped who I am as an instructional designer and an L&D leader. Okay, so we've talked about traditional programs, online programs, certificate programs, and on-the-job development. Can't say enough about on-the-job development. Even if you take one of those other 3 paths, traditional program, online program, certificate program, you're still going to have some on-the-job development because you're going to be a brand new instructional designer, and there are just going to be things that you've got to learn in your job. And even today, by the way, I've been an instructional designer for some time. I own my own business. We're a boutique instructional design agency. Even today, I still have elements of on-the-job training or development because there are new things happening in our space all the time. Think about AI, right? AI is a huge change for us. And that is something that I am constantly evaluating and looking at to see how I can incorporate that into our business and into our processes. So we're really kind of always on the job developing. All right, so number 5 for getting reskilled is self-study. Again, there's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's only the way that works best for you. So with self-study, this one really does require a lot of discipline and motivation and putting yourself first. This is one of those areas where, again, I'm speaking for myself. I can't speak for anyone else here, but if this resonates with you, tell me in the chat so that I know that I'm not the only one. But what I have found in my life is things that are important to me that, it's important to me, but it's not more important than other things in my life, like making sure that my daughter, has her project done for school, or helping with homework, or going over and helping a friend with something that they've got going on, or even just hanging out with a friend, going to have coffee. What I have found is things that are important to me, but not more important to me than helping the people in my life, often get pushed to the very bottom of my priority list. They get pushed to the very bottom. So that means that I keep pushing it out and I never do it. Now, you may be better than me at prioritizing things like this, but you've got to have some major self-discipline to do self-study and major commitment. And you have to be able to say no to other people because this is my study time and this is how I'm going to use it. But self study is really great because it is affordable, right? You can often, and we're going to talk about this on the next slide, but you can often plug into free resources or very low cost resources. You can go at your own pace. You can go fast. You can be like a mega learner, as we like to call one of our accelerator alumni, Joni. You could just like rip through all kinds of different content, or you can go really slow at whatever pace that you want to go. So self study is really nice because you can really flex it around your life, but commitment and discipline are key. So if you're kind of shaky in either of those areas, or if you know like you're barely taking care of yourself because you're out there taking care of everyone else, most likely self study isn't going to be the one for you. But if it is, and you've got those two characteristics of commitment and discipline, then with self-study, you can check out books from the library, you can get books online, you can follow different podcasts, you can watch YouTube videos, join ID groups and communities, plug into the free ID workshops, check out some of the low-cost trainings that are available on LinkedIn Learning and Udemy. There are lots of free resources and downloads out there. Join your local ATD chapter. They often put on very low cost education sessions too. So there are many ways that you can plug in and capitalize on self learning. But again, you've got to be disciplined and committed. If you are disciplined and committed and you know that you always put the right thing first, put your development first, just give me a shout out because I need to talk to you. I need to borrow some of that commitment and self-discipline from you. All right, so now what I want to do, I know that we don't have a ton of time left. I want to talk about the pros and the cons of each of these, okay? So we're going to look at traditional online certificate programs, on-the-job development, and self-study, and we're just going to kind of stack these and see which of these might be a really great fit for you after you kind of see the big picture of these all together. So let's take a quick look. Now we'll have this, on part of the screen and then we'll make it big. We'll make it full screen so you can do a screenshot if you want. Of course, you can always go back and watch the replay as well. So don't feel like you have to capture everything. So on row 1, you can see that we've got traditional degree plans. The level of difficulty on this is rated high. So some of the pros are you get a very comprehensive knowledge. It's, whenever you earn your degree, there's a lot of credibility behind that. And as you're going through the program, you get to network and build relationships with people. Now, some of the disadvantages or the cons of your traditional degree program is the time. You might want to be applying for a job in 3 months versus waiting 2 years. There's also the cost, depending on which university you go to and how much their tuition is, right? It also can depend on other things like how much are the books that are associated with this. So usually it's pretty rigorous. You have to get certain grades to pass, and then you will have even more pressure on yourself for a certain GPA so that you could put that onto your resume, right? And then there's a lot of focus on theory in many programs versus real world application. This isn't true for every program. So just do your due diligence whenever you are evaluating a university program. Just check that it does have that real world application and that you're going to work in tools like video tools and rapid authoring tools like Storyline, and that you will get to build a portfolio through that process, because those are the things you're going to need. You're going to need that in addition to having that degree on your resume, because you could have the degree but not have the skills in these areas and still not get looked at as a prospective employee. So the same is true with online degree programs. Level of difficulty is moderate to high. You have, one of the pros is that you've got a lot of flexibility. So with your schedule, so you can still work a full-time job and then plug into your education. Just like with the traditional degree program, you still got that credibility. I should have put accreditation under traditional degree program as well, because your universities are accredited. So there's a lot of credibility behind that. And then quality instruction, right? And we could have also put networking here, because you are networking. It's a little bit harder to build those relationships in an online environment, in a university school online environment, but still doable. Some of the cons, again, are self-discipline. You've got to get through your work. You don't have a teacher, like, okay, meet me for class at 7 p.m. on Monday night. So you don't have that. Also, another con or disadvantage is that limited face-to-face interaction. So you can't stay after class and ask your professor questions because your professor's not online. A lot of times they'll schedule office hours, or you can send emails, but it's, there's a little bit more distance between you and the person that is educating you. And then just some of the technical requirements. It's not uncommon to have to need to know how to use different tools from a student perspective in an online environment. So those are just things to keep in mind. Then we've got our certificate programs. So the level of difficulty here is moderate. Some of our pros or our benefits are that you get a very specialized focus, because you are working with individuals typically who work in the field that create these certificate programs. So they really kind of like guide your focus. That's one of the things, like whenever you do self-study, there's like so much information out there. You're like, where do I start? So it's nice to work with someone who is telling you like, okay, so you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and here's why you do this. So you get a specialized focus. A lot of times it's a much shorter duration than your online or your traditional degree program. So you can be finished, in 3 months, 6 months, 4 months, less than a year. Typically that's how that works out. And you get a lot of real practical application, creating products that you can then actually put into your portfolio to show off your skill. Now, some of the disadvantages can be that it's a more narrow focus, because you're not going to fit everything that you would do in a 2-year degree program into a 12-week program, right? Or a six-month program. You're going to get a lot, but it won't be exactly the same. And then based on the different programs out there and who is creating those programs, you could have a lot of quality variation. So just like with everything else in the world, there's going to be quality levels. So you want to make sure you check that. Then on the job development, the level of difficulty really depends on several factors. Is there anyone else on the team that can help you? Are you out there kind of on an island by yourself trying to figure this out? How's the leadership team as far as their expectations about what it is that you're doing? Again, the pros are you get real world application and experience and practical experience. You're going to get to network with different people, and there's a lot of adaptability for whatever's happening and what your skill level is. Some of the disadvantages then would be you've still got that limited formal education. So you might have a good instinct about something, but you don't really know if you're doing it right unless you're paired up with someone in the organization that can help you. Job availability, not every employer will be like, oh, you know what, Shawntay, you don't have any experience. That's all right. Come on over. We like you anyway. Let's have you on the team, and we're gonna develop you. So these can be very hard to come by unless you've got something behind you like a certificate or a degree that helps you get into the door. And then reliance on membership. And whenever we say reliance on membership, we are talking about like membership in that circle or in that group. So self-study, this is our last one. So the level of difficulty is low to moderate. Pros are you have a lot of flexibility for learning, super cost effective typically, and it's targeted learning because you are in the driver's seat deciding exactly what it is that you're going to learn. Cons, this is where that discipline comes in. So limited structure, credibility issues, and lack of interaction. So what we mean by credibility issues here, and I am guilty of this, y'all, so I will own this. But when we say credibility issues, I do a lot of hiring for some of our clients whenever they need to bring people onto the team. So whenever a resume gets forwarded to me and I look at it and they're like, oh, Udemy Learning, or, there's nothing on their resume that showed that they have any kind of education, not a certificate, not Udemy Learning, not LinkedIn Learning, nothing. I will often, if I don't see a huge amount of experience there, I will often discard that resume in favor of people that do have that there. So self-study is really hard to see on a resume. So it can be a disqualifier for me because I can't see it. So you're going to have to build elements into your resume that kind of help somebody see that you did some studying in some way. Let's see. And then that lack of interaction is you don't have someone to ask for help or to get support from. So, again, if you do self study, I would recommend that you find a mentor or a coach that's already in the space that is willing to guide you if this is the lane that you choose. All right. So, that's a lot. Again, you can watch this on the replay if you want to go back and look at any of these, or if you caught a screenshot of this, then you'll kind of have this as like a cheat sheet for yourself. And then again, we'll just give this shameless plug that we are in open enrollment for our instructional design and tech accelerator certificate program. It is a 12-week program. It is jam-packed with real-world application exercises. It has live coaching and mentorship. It has work reviews of all of your application exercises where we review your work, not for a grade. We review your work to elevate your work, give you feedback, then you go back and you apply that. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to acceleratedid.com/system and you'll find testimonials and all kinds of information out there. So our enrollment opened this week and it closes on September 24th or whenever we fill our capacity. Okay. All right. So just a quick recap of what we've covered today. There are 5 key ways that you can get reskilled in instructional design. So we've talked about traditional degree programs, online degree programs, certificate programs, on-the-job development, and of course, self-study. Again, there's no right way and there is no wrong way. It's only what works best for you, the amount of time that you have, and how much budget you have for your development. So whatever choice that you choose to make in order to get reskilled in instructional design, just feel confident that that is the right choice, okay? So pick one or come up with another one. And if you have another one, I'd love to hear what that is. Now, again, if you have any questions about making the transition into instructional design, then I would encourage you to go out and check out our 4-step plan to make that transition into instructional design.